there, people of the internet. My name is Jagero, and this is Dialogues with Jagero. Continuing with my amazing conversation with the spiritualist, the healer, the priestess. The priestess from Bunyoro. Right? From Bunyoro.
From Kenya, yeah, Bunyore.
As always, some people will not have seen the first episode.
Yeah.
They're just seeing this episode.
Right.
And so that is why we get to the boring part of talking about yourself.
No, it's okay.
Again.
It's all right. Yeah. Olatokunboh is my name. Olatokunboh. I am Nigerian and I'm Kenyan. My father is Nigerian, so I guess I'd be considered Nigerian. But mother's side, Kenyan side, Bunyore, Vihiga County. Yeah, Itumbu. From the Abashiekwe clan. The rainmakers.
What are they known for?
The rainmakers. We are the rainmakers. We are the ones who make rain.
Yeah, for the entire country?
Yeah, no, our presence itself, yes, for the entire country or whatever, our presence itself brings rain, if we will it.
What is this? How do men make rain?
I
know how they make babies, but how do they make how do they make rain?
Oh, well.
Because our president said inatoka kwa Mungu.
It's true.
Yeah, our president said that mvua haitoki kwa forest.
Kwa forest inatoka kwa Mungu. Sa lakini Mungu is the conductor and driver of all things. Sa shida ni wapi?
Yeah, so
even if it's if the scientists say it's from the forest and we need the leaves and we need the whole ecosystem to function and conspire rain for us, lakini Mungu ndio anatubariki na hizo zote, hizo functions.
Yes.
Okay. So he's kind of right, but he's not talking about the details. It's not just Mungu, it's all of us are part of God, and everything around us is part of God.
Yeah. So refusing to plant trees is basically also not a good thing.
Absolutely, because God's creation are the trees. And God created the trees for a reason, to bring us rain, for one. So we need the trees.
Yeah.
Tusiseme tu atikata miti zote afu Mungu atatupatia mvua. Amna.
Now we are seeing your tattoos.
You see them?
Yeah, but let's talk about yourself. You're not done with talking about yourself.
Olatokunboh is my name. Tokunboh. Ola is kind of like the prefix, but I'm Tokunboh. Tokunboh te Okumbo, the one who comes from the ocean.
Isn't that the ocean?
Okun is ocean, big large body of deep water. So kind of like Olokun. I think we were discussing a bit about the water, so I'll tell you a little more because that's very feminine. Very much about woman.
Yeah.
The woman principle, the female principle. I'm a mother. I have 3 children. My eldest is 27. My baby is 22. That's my son. I have 2 daughters. Beautiful children. Raised them to be open-minded. They're doing wonderfully. They're all mathematicians and physicists, but more like quantum mathematicians and physicists. So they have the spiritual part in their science. They are, what else? Let me see. I'm not going to talk so much about my children, but I do clinical herbalism and clinical nutrition. I also do birth work. I've been doing birth work for a long time. And many, many things. Many things. In fact, I consider myself a polymath.
A polymath?
Yeah.
A polymath has something to do with languages.
Not just languages, but skills. Like someone who you can do anything you put your mind into.
That's a polymath.
Like someone who likes to learn many things. Polymath.
And now you live among the Maasai.
I live with Maasai. Of course, there's other tribes there too, but yeah, it's Maasai land. It's very Maasai. And I live there now. Yes, now. I mean, I do have a great-grandfather who my Luya side always talks about, who was Maasai. And the funny thing is, he comes from that area. Yeah. I connected dots and found that where I was led is where he originally came from before he got adopted as a Luya.
Okay. Talk to me about your tattoos. What do they mean?
Very interesting for the topic today. Okay. So I'm a priestess.
You're a priestess?
In the Nigerian tradition of Ifa.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's some people say Yoruba priestess. I don't like to say that. I like to say Ifa. I'm an Ifa priestess because Ifa is the name of the practice of spirituality. Because people, not everyone, your listeners might know what Ifa is. Ifa is kind of like Buddhism. It's lifestyle. It's not religion necessarily. There are some religious parts to it because religion includes doing rituals, like doing things. You go to church, you read the Bible, there are scriptures, there's something everyone follows. We have the same thing. However, it's also lifestyle. So what I have on my right arm tattooed here is a staff. It's called the staff of Osun. And this is
the staff, like
staff,
S-T-A.
like a staff, like what Masais walk with, a staff.
The
right?
one for Moses.
Yeah, the staff of Moses.
Yeah.
Right? The one that changed into a serpent.
Okay.
Right? In front of Pharaoh. Right. Anyway, so this staff does similar things. And this staff is a staff for the society of the mothers. The mother society, those who follow the mother society, who are initiated into the mother society, like I am. And if you look at the staff closely, it has a calabash, it has a bird, and it has these aspects about it. Feathers.
I understand the feather. What remind me about the feather and the awl?
The feather?
Because I can see the awl over there.
Well, actually, yeah, there's a bird up here, owl shape, and then there's feathers. It looks like that, but it's really just Osun. It's the shape of the Osun. And so the birds are part of the mother society. They represent the mothers, all the birds.
Okay.
Yeah, especially scavenger birds.
Scavenger
Which
birds.
we call igun. Yeah, the vultures.
Scavenger, the ones that eat meat.
Yeah. The ones that scavenge over dead carcasses.
Wow.
And then the calabash is also quite important because the calabash represents the womb.
The oven.
The womb. The uterus.
The last time you talked about it as the oven. Now
oven.
You're talking about it as the womb.
Well, I'm bringing it to Africa now.
Great.
Yeah, calabash, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because the oven is modernism, but then the calabash is now what it is.
Well, that's where we fermented our milk, right? Or, it would be shaken. We also, we keep things in the calabash to grow, right? So our calabash is our oven, if you want to, but we're bringing it to Africa now.
Yeah.
So this is, there's a calabash here. So again, this stuff represents the mothers, the mothers of the women's society. So that's what I was initiated into. So I wear the
woman
staff.
society.
Mothers.
Do you mind explaining more about what the woman society means?
It's called the Mother Society, not women's.
Yes.
Right.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Well, the Mother Society is, in Yoruba, we call it Iyami. Iya means mother, me, my mother. And it's a society for women. Some people call it witches, but it's actually called witches because it's a bunch of women. And I think we spoke about this at some point in one of the episodes, how, when a bunch of women get together, sometimes, especially in the past, and especially with colonizers not understanding what was happening, they may observe that as witches, a bunch of women witches getting together, sort of scrutinizing and judging it. But I prefer to just say the mothers. It's Iya, me. Iya means mother, and me, my mother. So that's what the society is. And basically in that society, you teach what I'm doing right now. You teach people, you pass down knowledge and wisdom. You bless those who pass down knowledge and wisdom as well. So that's the purpose of the staff, to bless them. The birds are very much a part of the mothers. Birds represent the mothers. So each bird you see, eagle, falcon, owl, they're all rooster, all of them mean something to the mothers. And so we use them. They have their own purpose. Yeah, these ones are 3 circles. So in Yoruba culture, we have what's called the Odu, which are the proverbs. They're poems.
Okay.
And so there's 16 major poems.
Poems? Okay.
Yeah, but there's 256 poems altogether.
In Yoruba culture?
In this Ifa expression in Yoruba culture. And so I just have 3 poems here that I wanted to always wear to remind myself of the principles of these poems. The first one is called Ejiogbe, which reminds us of many things, but patience and of how to keep our balance, like the primordial waters, knowing that it's out of the waters that we came from and the waters will go to. It's one of the most powerful, it is the first Odu represented in the 16. Then I have Ogundameji, which is about, for me, it's about, not misusing your power, not abusing your power and your presence. And then I have Oturameji, which is also about basically, about being integrity, keeping your integrity. Yeah.
And then there is a lot writing there.
Yeah, that's what Odu is. Odu is basically the poems. It means poems, or the poems. And that's my translation in English for it. Yeah.
Okay. Whew. You're not a prophetess. You're a...
Yeah, I wouldn't say prophetess.
A priestess.
Priestess, yeah, priestesses. In Yoruba, we say Yanifa. Yanifa. So you can say that from now on.
The women that we see in Nigerian movies, the very powerful women, dark places.
And sometimes they illustrate them as horrible people.
Yeah.
I mean, there are horrible people out there, So even in our churches and our mosques, there are horrible people.
True.
Right. So it's the same in Ifa.
Let's talk about the topic of the day then. Feminism.
Yeah.
What excites you most when you think about feminism? But I have a lot of... I want you to answer this question in several ways, in a very wholesome way. Because I know that there is the kind of feminism that you love.
Yeah.
Then there's the feminism that you don't like so much.
Right. I don't love.
And don't love. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about what would you think when you hear about feminism, as much as what... I'll let you answer this question.
What excites me about feminism, first and foremost, as we start this dialogue, I'd like to say, I give honor to this earth, to the Earth Mother, and honor to the waters, honor to all the fruits and vegetables and the foods of the earth, and the animals that are nurtured by the earth, and the people who are nurtured by the earth. And I also give honor to the entire universe, which a lot of it I don't know, it's ethereal to me, but I give great honor to it, because all of that is the mother. The whole ecosystem is the mother. So for me, feminism represents the power of being nurtured, the power of being nourished. Yeah. I am a mother, as I said. I have 2 daughters and a son. I love men. I am not a feminist or a woman who would ever put a man down, because I have a father, and I have brothers, and I have uncles, and I have, most importantly, a son. I birthed a son. I birthed a man. So if I hated men, then that would mean I hate my son. That would mean I'd hate my father and my brothers and my uncles and my friends, like you, right? So I love men. Feminism is not, for me, about disliking a gender. It's not a gender thing. Feminism, for me, I take it back to the African tradition. Feminism is a feminine principle, is living in the feminine principle of life. So the feminine principle is anything in nature that Ifa, for instance, or African spirituality has taught us is in nature. But it's also invisible. And, we're all feminine, every single one of us, because we live within the mother, right? We live in the calabash, in the oven. So that's what feminism is to me. What's exciting to me is that revelation that feminism is the calabash, it's the earth, it's never stops giving. That's the feminine principle, always nurturing. Yeah.
Okay, but then there is the other part of feminism that has taken over the internet.
Yeah.
What are your honest views about it?
I think it's too cerebral. I think people are looking
What is that in English?
That means that it's like people in their heads too much. It comes out when you get in your head. Sometimes we get in our head because of a necessity. So, for instance, the feminism movement that started 50s, 60s, right? Maybe out of the 40s, right? Because out of World War II, let's say in the U.S., that feminism movement starts, there's agendas, like we've spoken about in many shows. There's always a political underlying agenda, which means that there was probably profit. Get the women out so that we can make more money, right? There's more money that comes in when everybody's working, right? So to me, that's a fine agenda, right? If I'm in the 1% families that are wanting to make money, especially after a world war where there's a lot of loss. So the movement comes out of that, and it's instigated. So when there's agendas that are put in, it's like planting a seed, and people pick up the seed and twist it to make it to work for them. So like I said, maybe the underground agenda after World War II was specific people said, we need more money, let's get the woman out of the home. How do we get the woman out of the home? Let's select a few women who we can influence with this idea. But we can't present an idea that we want to make more money, get you out of the home. It's got to be like, women should have the same rights as men. Women shouldn't be in the home anymore. They should be out in the factory and can work on the roads just like a man. A woman is just like a man, right? So this small injections of this somewhat poison is inserted into specific places, and people use it and grow with it and create a movement, the feminism movement. We are not men. Women are not men.
How so?
We are structurally different. Let's start physically, physiologically. We don't have the same functions as a man, similar hormones. I mean, granted, there are hermaphrodites out there, and there's other abnormalities out there, but in gender-wise, we are not. Women are women and men are men. And principles also exist within us, but let's just talk about the human body. As I said, men's functions are different, bodily functions, hormonal functions. Therefore, if their hormonal functions are different and they produce different hormones, then they're going to have different way of thinking, because hormones affect the way we think, our perception. So they're different in that way. I think men are more direct. Men can be very simple. I think women are very smart and very manipulative. I told my son and not my daughters to be actually more cautious about women than I told my daughter to be cautious about men. And most of the time it's usually flipped. Most of the time mothers tell their daughters to be cautious about men. But actually, I think women are much more, if you want to call, dangerous than men. Yeah.
How can you qualify that statement with specificities?
Yeah, well, so I like to qualify these with observation, like back to nature, because that's what I do. I'm a priestess of Ifa.
Okay.
So we go back to even what we were talking about last episode about depression and suicide, the nighttime, the darkness. Night, darkness, heaviness, the unknown represents a woman, the feminine principle, right? It's easy to manipulate in the dark. You can't really see, right? But in the light you can see. So men are more, if they want to be a manipulative, they could, or I should say the masculine principle can manipulate better, can manipulate in the daytime, but it's not as let me see, sneaky, right? It's out. But women, it can be a very slow process. You don't know it's coming. And then boom, right? So it's a very powerful, very magnetic. Women are very magnetic. The feminine principle is a very magnetic principle.
What do you mean by magnetic?
It pulls you in. It's an energy that pulls in. So I teach my students that if you really want to understand the masculine and the feminine principle, don't go far away from your reproductive system. Everything about the masculine and the feminine principle is in the reproductive system.
Are you going to be bold?
Absolutely. We're all grown-ups, right?
Yes.
So the masculine principle is an outward, right? I mean, principle as in the reproductive system. Men have a penis. When they get erected, it sticks out.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't go inside. If they are shooting out sperm, it comes out of the penis and direct into something else, right? Which hopefully is a vagina, but could be something else. Okay? And it's directing. And even the way sperm moves, it moves and they compete. There might be thousands of sperms in there, and they're competing, and one makes it, or two, because twins, maybe three. Sometimes there's triplets, right? And one makes it and goes and it fertilizes an egg that's available, just waiting there. So the difference is the sperm had to move. It had to go. It was directed. It was determined, right? But the feminine was just like, I'm here. I'll just open. I'm available. And then when the sperm shows up, her fluids suck the sperm in, and it attaches to the ovary. And the ovary is just sitting there. The ovary didn't, it maybe came out of the egg came out of the ovary, the ovum, right? And went through the fallopian tube and was waiting around, above the cervix or around there for the sperm to meet. But her egg didn't go out and look for the sperm and, also struggle with other eggs and compete, right? So the difference is magnetism pulls, sucks you in. And men are more electric. They're like, right? Direct. Women are more passive, or the feminine principle is more passive. I should really clarify women, men, feminine principle, masculine principle, because the principles is really what's most important and not the gender. The principles is about how everything on our planet exists, which actually exists in both those principles, okay? So if you want to know everything about the masculine and feminine, starting from our genders, you can look at the reproductive system. And it's around us. So, for example, I like giving one example that people really get is you go to the petrol station and you put petrol in the car. You take the nozzle out, you stick it into the car, and it produces petrol into the car, right? And then the engine or what have you receives the petrol, right? So that's exactly a masculine and a feminine principle right there, enacted. Nozzle, penis, petrol, sperm, right? Ejaculation. And then wherever it's going, the petrol is going into would be the recipient, which would be the feminine principle, right? The giver, the recipient. And then it goes inside, and then she uses it to make something. So sperm becomes a child. You make something out of it.
Like petrol produces movement.
Petrol is nothing without a car. It doesn't have any meaning without being useful. Like sperm doesn't have any meaning without being useful. So why is the feminine so important? Because she creates from the things that are potentially out there.
Oh, that opens a Pandora box.
A man you are not going to create any life form without a woman. Sperm is useless without an egg. A sperm is the seed, an egg is the fruit that comes out of the seed, from the seed. So the feminine principle is, we have to compare the two in some ways so that we can really be clear about what feminine is, right? The feminine principle is. So now let's take it to nature.
Yeah.
So the feminine principle in nature is, let's start with the moon and the sun, okay? Most our teachings, our traditional indigenous teachings will tell you the sun, most part, but again, it gets complicated because the more advanced and deeper, you get into this, you see the principles are within each other. So remember last episode I was talking about how spirals, like everything is within everything is within everything. There's a macrocosmic and microcosmic universe, and the macrocosmic is big and the microcosmic is small. But one day the microcosmic can become the macrocosmic. And one day the macrocosmic can become the microcosmic because there's something bigger than it, right? So it's an interspiral universe. So if we start with the sun and the moon, because the moon is usually shining our night, right? Even if the moon's out in the daytime, the sun is much stronger in its light than the moon is. So if you look at the sun and the moon, you'll see that bright, direct sunshine would be a masculine principle, right? Just like I said, a penis erects. It's straightforward, very straightforward. That's why men are generally very straightforward. Women can move around in circles, and that's the dangerous thing about the feminine principle. It can be dangerous if it's moving you around in circles and hypnotizing you in a magnetic way, right? Okay, so now the moon is feminine because it's the one that is dominant in light at night. Okay, so it's at night, it's dark. So we teach in indigenous wisdom that the night, the darkness, the magnetic energy, which is what the moon is. It's a magnetic, you know it's magnetic because it rises the water, right? High tides during the full moon, okay? Low tides during new moon. And the sun, just, it's going to come. And it comes in cycles of 24, right? But the moon takes a longer cycle of 28. And so the feminine principle is actually embodied in women, where every 28 days they have a menstrual cycle.
Tell me about it, because do you know in Luo culture, when a woman is having menses, they say she has gone to the moon?
Yeah, we do the same thing in Luya culture.
Okay, what does that mean?
They say that she's on her moon, right? She's in her moon, or...
Are you able to speak to me in plain English around? You're very... Well... You're full of jargons, and you're losing me on this table, and when you lose me, you lose my audience.
Right.
Yeah, tell me about the moon and the menstrual cycle.
The menstrual cycle is... Okay, so generally, of course, this is not always in our... square society. In our society, modern society, with the lights and with food and stress and stuff that we go through, sometimes women's menstrual cycles is off because of those factors. But the menstrual cycle typically would be every 28 days in a woman, average, 27, 26, 28 days, something like that, maybe 29. And it's in sync with the moon cycles. Okay, so the full moon, new moon, the full moon and the new moon cycles are every 14 days. We say that ovulation usually happens at about in a full moon time. So around now, which is about a full moon, the moon is waxing. It's probably almost full in 2 or 3 days. This right now, a lot of women are ovulating if they're in sync with the moon. Okay, there's a lot of ovulation. Sometimes it's flipped, and I'll talk about that in a second. And so why is that? It's just the way we are. I mean, there's a sync between the body. I don't know how to explain that. I've never actually seen anyone explain it, except that the fact that our bodies as women in the feminine body are, we have this magnetic pull between the moon and ourselves, kind of like the ocean. The tide is higher now than it would be 2 weeks from now. I think it's something to do with water. I think women, all of us have a lot of water, but when you're going to bleed, you're pulling blood out of your womb. And so I think that's the tide. Like the tide is high. So the swelling, the ovulation is happening now. Women generally gain a little bit more weight, have more water in their body, and then when the moon is new, they'll splash it out with the blood, which is be darkness outside. So it's like representing there's nothing in there. If life is formed, then of course, this is the time where also with the high tide, women are feeling more sexual and sensual. So they're looking for, you'd find, I mean, if you examine, you'll find women feeling more seductive at this time. Because their bodies are in sync with wanting to create life. When you ovulate, you want to create life. So the new moon represents creating life, creating something that you want to create. The full moon, when it's bright and white, represents creativity and wanting to create life. The new moon, when it's dark, represents letting go. So the bleeding happens at that time.
All right, people of the internet, I hope that you are enjoying this episode so far. I broke the episode just to tell you something that is very, very interesting. In 2024, a lot of people were saying that I am broke, Jagero. I do not have a job. That what is interesting is that when they were telling me this in 2024, I was already working on a book for the last 3 years. And that book was about the hustles and the jobs that you can get online. Now, what you need to know about me, Jagero, is that I have always traveling. I'm always doing this crazy, nice stuff. But I've never been employed since I left college. And I'm not saying that because I hate employment. I didn't get employment, you know. But I have always worked. I've always earned money. I have worked for Americans. I've worked for Europeans. I've worked for Kenyan. I've worked for anybody literally on the face of the earth. And these are jobs that I've always gotten online, on LinkedIn, on other ways. So I've been very busy. In 2024, I wrote a book called The Digital Goldmine, 18 side hustles that you can take advantage of online. And a lot of people bought that book. Almost sometimes even 500 people in a month buying that book. And people have been saying, are there more jobs? Yes, there are more jobs. So in 2024, they are no longer 18 side hustles, but they are 25 side hustles because I have added other books. So in 2025, you cannot say, Jagero, I don't have a job. Jagero, I am broke, because I have put it before you. The book is not expensive. It is 1,000 Kenya shillings. Or if you are asking about the price in other parts of the world, it is just $10. Okay? So in the description below, I have put the link that takes you to where you can learn more about the book. And I've also left a link where you can buy the book. So thank you very much. And let's go back to programming. There is a related question that I want to ask you in as far as that is concerned. People always say that they can tell that it's about to rain because of the way their body behaves. There are people who will have swellings when there is a season. Mm-hmm. When the weather changes, there is a swelling. When the weather changes, there is something that happens to them. There is a headache. They feel happy when a certain weather is on the horizon.
Yeah.
Do you know how the body communicates with the environment, with the weather?
Wow, it's not entirely. Mm-hmm. Some things I think are good being left to the phenomena of life. It's nice to live in a mysterious world, because it's just, sometimes we can just say, wow, right? I think it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. But the first thing, I know this, and I feel this myself, especially when it comes to headaches. When there's a lot of moisture in the air, for me, I tend to get a lot of headaches, a lot of humidity. When I was living on the island of Puerto Rico, I was feeling that same way. You know, I'd have a lot of headaches when it's very humid, or after hurricanes, because there's so much water and humidity in the air. Again, it comes to do with just we don't just drink water, water penetrates through our pores. Our skin has a lot of pores. So scientifically, we're also bringing in water through some type of osmosis through the skin. And so that increase of water increases pressure. Water rising is pressure rising, you know. And if you're a woman who tends to hold more water than others, there's some women who tend to hold more water in their bodies, or men who tend to hold more water in their bodies, they'll feel that pressure even more than others. So that would be my physiological health version of explaining that. But as far as spiritually or in a African philosophical way, I'm not sure, other than the fact that some of us are more watery than others. Mm. And water is the woman, it's the feminine principle in us all. Men too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the earth is 3/4 water, about 75%. I would say 3/4 because I like the fraction, the illustration of fractions. And our bodies are 3/4 water.
Yeah.
Approximately. Mm. So we represent the earth. So she's the mother. We are all the mother. We all have the feminine. And then the water in us is also feminine. So we need to be spending most of our time being feminine. And maybe we should explain what that means for our man.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Because, your listeners might be saying, she said spend most time being feminine, so I should be wearing skirts and stuff. No, not necessarily. I mean, not that skirts are a problem. Our cultures where our traditional attires wear dresses, and, of course we don't call them dresses, but we have our different African attires, and not just African, other cultures, right? So it's not about that. It's not about being a woman. It's about embracing the feminine side in yourself. We can live in both. Even I, as a woman, can have a masculine part to myself. So, for example, I don't know. We're here sitting, and a big cobra comes up right now. You and I might have two different reactions. And in fact, you might have a more feminine reaction, and I might have a more masculine reaction. My masculine reaction may be like, oh, I have a little knife in my bag, so I'm going to go get it, and I'm going to throw it, because I'm pretty good at throwing knives and targeting well. So I'm going to get that knife, and I'm going to target it on its head, right? And that's direct, finished. We've killed the cobra, right? But your reaction may be, oh my gosh, there's a cobra. I'm out of here. I'm gone, right? Or standing on the table and just be like, call somebody. Tell them there's a cobra here, right? So you're sort of using the feminine principle by asking other people, like doing nothing but doing something in a sense. I just took the knife out, threw it directly on its head, and it's done. That's a male. That's penis, erect, sperm, shoot. That's it. Masculine principle. So we all can embody that. Now, in a sense of like, that was an illustration as a woman with a masculine principle. Let's see a man with healthy feminine principle. There's a baby crying, right? And so the baby is crying, and, most of the time in our culture, we're taught that only women, should really be, calming the baby and etc. But a man can definitely calm a baby by singing to the baby, rocking the baby, tie the baby on the back. There's nothing wrong with that. You're also including your nourishing side of yourself, and not saying, oh, only women should tie a baby on the back. Yeah. You can do that as well and carry the baby. Yeah.
Okay. The question is, some historical example of successful feminine roles in Africa?
Historical examples. So I love the Orishas. Orishas are the deities that we teach in Ifa. And as I've been discussing in some of the episodes, about the waters, and I mentioned one of my favorite ones. Actually, all of them are my favorite, because they're all the mothers of the earth. So, for instance, in African spirituality, we have Mami Wata, we have Oshun, we have Yemoja, we have Osa, we have all these names that we call, and we believe in Ifa that these names are related to people who once lived on the earth. But now they're in the river, and they're in the waterfall, and they're in the ocean. So those names I just called out are ponds, or the marsh, still waters. Osa, she's still waters. So she's a water that you don't see it moving, it's still. But if you go inside the water, you'll see frogs, you'll see tadpoles, you'll see moss, you'll see algae, you'll see certain types of fish living there. You'll see a lot of bubbles and movement going on inside. And then, you look at Oshun. Oshun, she used to walk on the earth, but now she's represented in the rivers, which we call sweet waters. And so every river you see, when you sit by the river, you just feel this calm. If you're stressed out, I know a niece of mine in Tanzania, she takes her clients, she's a psychologist, she takes her clients to the river. That's where she does her consultations, so they can open up and share their problems, because it's a flowing place, and it's a place that represents sweetness. It represents, I'm not attacking you, so you can feel safe here. to express your traumas. So that's why we love to hear the water flowing. And then there's waterfalls, that's represented in a deity such as Yemoja. Yemoja is the white part of the waves of the water that has its own essence. You go to the ocean, you see those waves coming back and forth, back and forth. It's like she's telling you, let me take what your problems are and I'll go throw them out in the ocean and you won't see them again, and then I come again and take, you have more? Yes, okay, I'll take it and I'll throw it back into the ocean. We have Olokun, who's oftentimes feminine, but a feminine masculine at times represented as that. And that's the undercurrent of the ocean. So underneath the ocean, deep, deep, deep underneath the ocean is a different energy than above the ocean. So Olokun gives you a lot of mysterious treasures, mysterious gifts and wealth. Because if you go underneath the ocean, I don't know if you've ever scuba dived, but you'll see some amazing creatures that you will not see on top of the ocean or ever, unless you go inside the ocean. Very interesting, funny creatures.
Yeah.
A wealth of knowledge, mysterious knowledge. So the feminine principle in traditional society is represented in our nature, back again to nature. And we call them, we have names for them, and we can honor them through these elements of nature. Yeah, so I don't know if you want me to expand anything on that, but that's a template.
I like the river.
I would like to know more East Africans. We've lost a lot of ours here in Kenya, the names. Do you have some names for the mothers in Luo land? Because I ask about them and I can't get them in Luya land.
The mothers.
At least in Bunyore. Yeah.
Probably we have Nyamgondo. Mm-hmm. There's only one called Nyamgondo. Mm. That's the mother. The mother that... have you heard of the myth Nyamgondo?
No. Tell me, what is it in a nutshell?
Nyamgondo, so probably you'd put it into perspective. Mm. Nyamgondo is the woman that came from the waters.
Which type of waters? Because remember, we talked about several waters.
The lake.
Lake, okay.
Yes. So Nyamgondo came from the lake. Mm-hmm. There is a gentleman that went fishing, mm-hmm. and then a lady came out of the water, mm-hmm. and
so she's lady of the lake.
Yeah, and he took her in as a wife. Mm-hmm. But then she brought a lot of wealth mm-hmm. to this poor man, and she warned him that the only thing you can do is to disrespect me. Mm-hmm. The moment you disrespect me, you will lose everything. Mm-hmm. So this guy grew in wealth mm-hmm. and started getting other women. Mm-hmm. And then one day, he got drunk and told the lady that I picked you from the lake. What do you think you are? And then the story is, the lady said, all right, I'll go back to the lake. And then when she started going back to the lake, everything else started following her. The animals, the land, the granary, everything that was in that compound followed her into the lake. So when you talk about those people, the only story that I get is the story of Nyamgondo.
It sounds so much like the story of Yemoya and Ogun.
Okay.
Ogun is in Ifa is the father of iron and technology, but he loves to drink and he becomes drunk. And he also met Yemoya at the waters and brought her home. But she had like one very big breast and one small breast. And so he took her home. She cooked for him. She took care of him. She nurtured him. But he was always drunk, always drunk. He had other women. And then he would, she's told him, don't talk about my breast. If you talk about my breast, I'm going to leave. And so, similar story. But for me, the breast represents the richness because breast has milk. It has, it's where we suckle, right? So you're fed. So it's the wealth that she brought to their family, and so he continued to disrespect her with her and talk about her breast to other people, to other people in the community, in the village. And so she returned back to the water. Yeah. Very similar. Very similar. When you were saying that the story to me, I was like, wow, this reminds me of the story of Yemoya and Ogun. Yeah. So I guess.
Would you say that the feminine role in Africa is valid today?
Oh, I think in our culture.
Which culture? The Bunyore culture?
Our cultures, all of ours in Africa, at least the ones I know.
Okay,
I know
good.
several African cultures that I don't know exactly, but, being part Nigerian, being part Kenyan, living in other parts of Africa, South Africa, Botswana, and what I've read or discussed with other Africans from all over, from Senegal, Mali, Congo, even Ethiopia. What I've noticed is that our cultures are matriarchal in Africa. Some more matriarchal than others. But generally the basis, we can look mbali at the distance, we can see a matriarchy. Which means that there was a time we really, really worked on the feminine principle, which is that 3/4 that I was saying that men and women function on. And then now, I think again, back to our conversation about colonialism, westernization, modernization, we're moving out from that and we've overlapped. We have a lot of layers. Let's say here in Kenya, we're very layered. We're layered with even Indian. Some of our Kenyan food, we say Kenyan is Indian food, curries and, samosas, chapatis. So we have all these layers, and those layers have come with their own, those cultures have come with their own versions, and then we've shifted it to work for us. So some of the matriarchy stays there, and whatever those cultures bring, a lot of them patriarchy, starts to dominate the matriarchy. And now the value of women shifts, and it's sort of confusing, I think, for us. I think there's some confusion.
Since you started talking, I get this vibe that the feminine energy is very strong.
Very strong in Africa. Very powerful.
Which begs the question, why is it that right now the woman is sort of at the mercy of man, for lack of a better word, quote unquote? The woman is crying out that we are being trampled on. It is beginning to feel like there is the power that a woman has that she has abandoned, and she's using other ways to gain that power, but the power is inside her. She doesn't know about it, and she's looking for this power from a man. She wants the man to give back the power, but she has the power.
Right.
Do you think that that's what is going on?
I think, yeah, in some ways, I think that the disruption of the way of our teachings, I think what we're missing right now, let's talk about just now, what our generations are experiencing now. So let's say probably mine and ours, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, right? We're all in that adult phase of, right, relationships now. I think what's going on is that our elders were traumatized and didn't teach us and pass along a lot of information that we should have received. I'm talking about our grandfathers and our grandmothers. I think they went through a lot of trauma. And so we have to find mercy. We have to find a feminine principle to heal that. And for that being, if they had so much trauma, then out of that trauma, behaviors have come about. So we've been raised within the trauma. And so the full presence of our parents and grandparents was not there, or they were not even there. They died, in the middle of that trauma. So I think, yes, that women, the feminine is looking for her place. She's looking for her stool, but her stool is right there. But she wants the stool to be a specific way, because kind of like the feminist movement, they're saying there's a specific way of having a stool. I think we need to look back to our culture for our stool. We can't look at an American culture, for instance, for the stool, because the basis of the United States of America is not even what it looks like. It was Native American, and they know they are matriarchy. So if you want to look American, you need to look at the Native Americans' matriarchal system, which is very powerful. So those who are there right now, who are thinking they're in charge of the United States of America, are not the real Americans. And therefore, they don't even understand the stool of the feminine. And they're spreading that contagious infection around the world. So I think that's what's happening. I think that a lot of women are thinking that it should be what the dominant cultures, the imposition of dominant cultures say. And they go out and sort of evangelize people in that way. I think we need to look at our own cultures and rescue the beautiful parts of our cultures so that we have better relationships with ourselves and each other. And the man also, the masculine, needs to see the purpose of a feminine and to listen more, because one of the reasons of the feminine, like the moon, is the supporter. The one who stands side by side and is the listener. The passive is the listener. Remember, the one who sucks in. So you talk, and you're waiting for her advice, because her advice gives you direction to create what's to come. She's an expert at that, at creating with man. So man has the idea, the seed, and she's able to take that idea and say, oh, okay, yeah, we could, I see how that seed can be propagated into XYZ. Okay, let's do that. Yeah, all right. Let's be parents to it, to this idea. And so this is lacking a lot as well. A lot of men are just going out about doing what they want without respecting the opinion also of a woman. And then women are also abusing their power, knowing that women are very powerful. I'm going to say dangerously powerful and in manipulation, which is not a bad thing. I know that
it's a survival.
It's some survival, and I know that some people have disagreed with me when I use the word manipulation, but I actually think manipulation, like I said, I don't really look at things good and bad. I can see how useful manipulation can be.
Yeah, but even in agriculture there is manipulation.
Absolutely,
which is
you have
for
to
good.
dig the soil to plant the seeds and to move the earthworms, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. So I don't see anything wrong with it, but I think that a woman needs to see how she can be useful in her skills of manipulation for her family and her partners or partner. So I think this is something that's been confused, because I believe like these dominant cultures are telling us a woman should sit down, should be a Puritan, should wear a certain way, should be a certain way, and if she's not that, then she's not a woman. But in our own traditions, our mothers, I would say in my family, we're probably matriarchs. My mom is the eldest. She's a matriarch of our family. She's the one who tells everybody what to do and how to do those things. And the men listen and they act on it, which is exactly the feminine principle.
Yeah.
Passive, active. Passive, active. Yeah, so I think women are just don't take their seat, and they're not using what they have already to their advantage. And then men also need to work with women and to listen more to women, like go to a woman as well, to the woman you trust, mother, grandma, wife, yeah.
We have gender equality and gender equity in our, in our modern times. Mm-hmm. And then we have the femininity that you speak of. Mm-hmm. Speak about the African, the spiritual. Mm. Do you think they can coexist, or they are inherently at odds?
I think that they bump heads. I think that there are some parts that they bump heads. And then there's some parts that were lost that are actually quite congruent. So, women, in some of our cultures in Africa, women were the farmers. And a woman slept with seeds before they were planted. Should call other women in this whole community to come and plant with her. This is going to be the planting day. And speak of the planting day, probably around the full moon, because it's a good time to plant, right? And the moon cycles support with our agricultural cycles. And so she would call them, and they would cook together, and they would plant, and it was great. It was a community thing. But now we've moved away from that a lot. So there are some things that have been lost, and there are some things that can work together. For example, let's see. There's sometimes I feel the so-called feminism, modern feminism movement is really telling us what we used to have, and then we lost with a patriarchal dominance. So they do coexist. There's reminders. But I also think the feminism movement, especially in Africa, is not on the same level as the feminism movement in the United States of America, because they've had a different history and a different background. We did not need to have that movement. We have the culture. We have a matriarchal culture. We don't need to have the movement. So I think that's where it gets confusing. It's like, what's the point of you screaming and shouting for something that, like they are in the US, but you don't really need to do that. You don't need to have that. You have your grandmothers and your mothers and your culture to look on, to rescue the feminist point of view in our society. But we can't say that, without the men missing or the men doing what they're doing also increases a feminist movement. So basically everything is so confusing.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many misplacements of parts. I think that there's people who are just not looking culturally to see how their culture has been supportive to the feminism movement. Men and women. I think that two people, both men and women, need to sit down and they need to negotiate and to understand what our culture has given us that was beautiful and is beautiful, and to continue to propagate that into the future. I think that women should call men to a circle to discuss these things. I think a woman holding circle with other men is a very powerful thing, because she is the mother. She's the one who births every single gender on the planet. So she knows how to hold her children. Therefore, it's very much a mother's role. And I think that a lot of us African women are not doing that. We're saying, watch out, it's not, I don't care, it's not, that's not feminine. Feminine is nurturing, and it's holding space. And responsible for all people, because the earth is the all.
I'm mesmerized. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful thing having you to speak about this thing for 5 straight episodes, right?
Yeah. Now I can go rest.
Yeah, you can, you can go rest, but also you can, how do people find you?
Well, I have a website people can go to. It's wellofindigenouswisdom.com. People can email me. I like emails much more than anything else. You can find me at olawellofwisdom@gmail.com. Ola, O-L-A, well, like a well water, of wisdom@gmail.com.
And how are you going to help them? Who are the people that should look for you?
Well, it's a range of things. My practice, most people come to me for health issues, but all health issues begin with spiritual issues and emotional issues. So it's usually, I have a headache. And then we sit down and discover the headache is
Something else.
something else. I don't like my husband or my wife, or Yeah. So we go through all that, and there's lots of layers to it. So, my title, my degrees, my paperwork is in clinical work, clinical medicine. But spiritual work is really the foundation of my work in my medicine practice.
Okay.
So that's what people want to connect with me about.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, people of the internet. That was Olatokunboh.
Well done. You called me very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope you enjoyed. If you want to reach out to her to help you, you're always welcome. Remember to email her or go to the website and get the contacts. So please share whatever you've listened to, you've viewed. Consider subscribing to this channel, because when you subscribe, you get a lot of people to know that this is a serious channel, and people like Olatokunboh can fly from the States to come and talk with me about it. So don't shy away. What is happening is that about 35% of people who watch my channel are not subscribers. 35%, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. We need to change that. You've got to manifest it. So call it into the wind that 35% will, that percentage is, just start to see that number going down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So please consider subscribing. If you want to support this channel, you can send me money. You just need to go to our WhatsApp and then send us money. There is also a buy me coffee link that we always leave down there. This work is hard.
Yes, it is.
So I get a lot of people reaching out to me on WhatsApp and telling me that I'm doing a great work. But I want support.
If I can say, I commend you. I think you're first of all, you use a lot of your feminine principle in this work. And so that's amazing to see that balance between the feminine and the masculine in yourself. And I think that's why your work is successful, and it will continue to be successful. It is successful. Let me speak that into abundance for you.
I love it.
Yeah.
We are at 75. I want us to be at 100 by June. And I want us to be maybe 150 by the end of the year. This is the year that I'm getting the YouTube plaque. I'm so fired up.
Yes.
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 Until another episode, bye for now.